Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the monthly reading wrap-up for December of 2021. So I'd say I had a pretty decent reading month, sort of an eclectic mix. I'm not going to go through any of these books in detail. All of them I've covered in previous videos that you can just look back from mostly the month of December, a little bit from early January, and you'll see me talk about all these books in more depth if you are interested in seeing that. But otherwise, let's just go through and I'll quickly talk about them. The first thing that I read in December was The Lessons of History by Will and Ariel Durant, originally published in the late 1960s, I think 1968. And this is, basically what can we learn from history, from, past events, patterns, etc., etc. I had kind of a weird experience with this. I like the book overall. It's a very thin little thing. It's very general, very vague. Not going to find much in here that I contend with. However, I didn't just read this. I also listened to the audiobook. And it'd be weird to, it's such a thin book, why have an audiobook for it? Well, the audiobook does something really interesting. At the end of each chapter, they actually have excerpts from an interview that was done with Will and Ariel Durant. I think late 1960s, I believe, is when the interview was done. So it was interesting to hear that. And also the audiobook included 2 additional essays that had previously been unpublished. So I would kind of read along with the audiobook, and then I would listen to the conversation afterwards. And it proved to be an interesting experience. However, it's kind of one of those situations where, I'm on board with Will and Ariel Durant, especially Will Durant. He did most of the talking. You only heard Ariel a few times, his wife. But it's kind of like, when you have a relative at the dinner table, like Thanksgiving or something like that, and if you let them keep talking, they're eventually going to say some things that you just kind of want them to stop, before they embarrass the room. I kind of felt a little bit like that with this. In the audiobook, I think Will Durant comes off as a little bit more of a reactionary traditionalist of things going on in the 1960s, a little bit prudish as far as especially sexual morality is concerned. And I talk about that in more detail in one of the Fresh Red Kills videos. But I like the book overall. I recommend the book. I don't know if I recommend the audiobook. It's a really interesting experience, but I came away with a different feeling about this from the audiobook. But if we just judge it on the print, I like it a lot better. I also read for Book Trek 2021, where myself and some other booktubers were going on a 5-month mission. We did it from August until December of 2021, going through Star Trek fiction. And the month of December was about Enterprise. So I read Broken Bow, which was this is the novelization by Diane Carey of the pilot episode, which was a very good pilot episode. The writing in this is perfectly serviceable. Carey sticks, I think, to the script pretty closely, but it is a very strong script. So I enjoyed this read. I really think that this was a terrific beginning to that show. A show which was decent for the first couple of seasons, then got better and better. And season 3 and especially season 4, right before it was canceled, was really good. So I have a real soft spot for Enterprise and for this pilot episode, and I did like this novelization. Next, I read as a buddy read with Mark over at Book Time with Elvis, and also a YouTube commenter, Sonia. We read together The Mysteries of Udolpho by Radcliffe, originally published in 1794, an early Gothic novel. Probably the most famous and influential late 18th century Gothic novel. And I enjoyed this overall. I certainly had some issues with it. It is bloated. It is overlong. Radcliffe sometimes has a hard time getting to the point. There are long, languorous passages about mountains and rivers, and it could use certainly a good editor. We don't need all the poems that are also thrown in. So this is a book that runs for over 600 pages, and you could easily take out probably 200 pages from this. But I'm glad that I read it, and overall, I enjoyed my reading experience. I mean, I should point out that I don't read these kind of books for pure entertainment. So I am also reading this as basically a primary source. I'm reading it to get insight into the late 18th century mind, and especially as it pertains to the Gothic. So I am reading it on two levels. So as a purely entertainment level, it was okay. But as kind of an intellectual exercise and historical glimpse into 1794 Gothic, I found it much more valuable to me. So glad I read it. But I recommend it to everybody? No, certainly not. But overall, it was an enjoyable experience, and especially with that buddy reading with that group on Boxer was very enjoyable. And then for a build-up to Reading Africa 2022, the reading challenge that, again, Mark over at Book Time with Elvis is organizing, where we are using the Africa Cup of Nations soccer tournament that's beginning in mid-January as an opportunity to read books from or about Africa. And in anticipation of that, I read two books of African poetry. So the first one was Poems from Black Africa, originally published in 1963, edited by Langston Hughes. And this was a good, solid collection. I made a video where I read some excerpts from this, and I thought there were some pretty powerful poems in here, certainly. The edition I have is certainly a little bit beat up, but I think it's still kind of cool. This is an actual 1963 edition, so it's kind of neat, and I like the, you see the design in the opening inside the cover. So I thought this was a really good, fairly small, but a really good, solid collection. And I followed that up with another poetry collection, this one being the Penguin Book of Modern African Poetry. Much longer. This one is over 400 pages. Many more countries involved in this. This is the 4th edition, so these are all 20th century poems. But it was good. Good overall, solid collection. There were a few standouts for me that I read aloud in the Poetry Thursday video that I did for this book. And overall, I would recommend this. I kind of think if I was going to recommend one of the two books here to somebody who wanted to read African poetry, I kind of would say this one. There are some of the poems in here can just kind of go on, and you know, didn't really stand out to me. But I thought this had, for a small book, it had a lot of punch to it. So anyway, that's what I read for December. Sorry if the camera's shaking a little bit. I've got a little table everything is on. So that's what I read for December. There was The Lessons of History, Star Trek Enterprise, Broken Bow, The Mysteries of Udolpho, Poems from Black Africa, and the Penguin Book of Modern African Poetry. Thank you, BookTube.